I'd get out of the water if I were you. Our views on sharks have been evolving since time began. Literally, those things are prehistoric. When Steven Spielberg took us to Amity Island in 1975, panic grew to such an extent that the original novel's author, Peter Benchley, regretted his work.
Smile, you son of a...
These days were mostly wary but respectful. But the East Coast was once gripped by terror for these aquatic predators. And believe it or not, way before Benchley even put pen to paper. The year was 1916, and beachgoers learned to fear the waters after waves of shark attacks made even the shallow waters deadly. I'm your host, Nostalgic Nick, and we're gonna need a bigger boat.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
For all these facts about the real-life jaws that haunted the Upper East Coast.
They're all gonna die.
Was this really the inspiration for the Amity Island tragedies? Well, there's a lot more to it than that, so let's get to it. If you enjoy our swim back in time, give this video a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe so you'll reel in more deep dives like this. World War and Beach Shore. America in 1916 was quite different than today. Enter the First World War, the biggest and most gruesome conflict anyone had ever seen, obviously weighing on everyone's minds. This was also the very summer New York was slammed by a polio epidemic. Back then, people didn't know much about the disease, and the confusion added to the fear.
This is the man, the director of the Virus Research Laboratory, Dr. Jonas E. Salk.
Why does this matter? Because ways of having fun that summer were really limited. In that area, movie theaters closed and there weren't any public gatherings. People were told to stay away from amusement parks and beaches. But on top of this, there was also a deadly heat wave. So those beaches were the perfect place to get away from crowded, lockdown, infected cities and cool off.
And those who could afford it, even a minimum amount could come down.
Well, thousands of people sought this escape. Unfortunately, there were problems waiting in the water too. Lethargic or lethal. In the 1900s, it was pretty common to think of sharks as docile. Leave them alone and they'll leave you alone. Humans aren't a desirable target, all that reassuring stuff. One scientist said it's different to be bitten by chance than outright targeted and attacked. There were even rewards posted. No, not for catching one, but for a living person to get attacked by a shark. No one claimed that bounty, and dang if $500 wasn't enough to get people able to fake an attack or tempt a real shark. That's pretty convincing that sharks aren't interested. Proof enough, scientists believe we didn't have harmful sharks on our shores, period. Thinking sharks probably can't even bite hard enough to kill people. Keep this in mind because this is what people believed. Sure as the sky is blue and the grass is green, sharks were not deadly. Until they were. Fright of July. Across 2 weeks in July, Independence Day is such a perfect time for the beach. That's what Philadelphia resident Charles Epting Van Sant thought when he made the trip east to catch some waves. Everything was ideal. He and his family had rooms at one of Jersey's most historic and beloved locations, the Ingleside Hotel. He was even joined by a lively Chesapeake Bay retriever playing on the beach. The two were paddling around, not even that deep, when teeth clamped down on Van Sant's leg. Beachgoers heard his shouts, and at first they thought he was calling for the dog. But Van Sant was dealing with a shark attack. Finally, people made a human chain reeling the victim in. It became a bloody game of tug-of-war. The shark determined not to lose. That supposed weak jaw held on until both were dragged onto the pebbles under shallow water. Finally, they got Van Sant on land and his thigh was stripped of flesh. He bled out on the manager's desk of that gorgeous Ingleside hotel.
They put him on the hotel manager's desk at the Ingleside and he died within 2 hours.
Proven horribly wrong. This was horrifying, yes, but it was still treated as a freak accident, like someone's otherwise docile dog mauling someone. In this case, the shark had probably been aiming for the retriever, but several people reported seeing big sharks along the East Coast, but still no one believed they were a threat. Time to move on.
The beaches are open,
and people are having a wonderful time.
But when another vacationer and another Charles Bruder, was enjoying a lunchtime swim 45 miles north in Spring Lake, no one had to fear for his safety. And on July 6th, he was swimming 130 yards from shore, everything pretty routine, until history repeated itself, almost note for note. Bruder bit at the legs, and this time it took some leg with it. It said people fainted when they saw the carnage as the man was pulled ashore. And like Van Sant, his wounds were too great and he bled out instantaneously. The time for action. When Amity Island was the target of freak shark attacks, the mayor dragged his feet doing anything that would disrupt tourism.
For Christ's sake, tomorrow's the 4th of July, and we will be open for business. It's going to be one of the best summers we've ever had.
Turns out, his reactions represented how the public receives news of shark attacks. Ichthyologist and International Shark Attack File curator George Burgess breaks it down like stages of grief. First, there's shock, and then denial. It had to be something else like a killer whale or sea turtles. No, seriously, they proposed those alternatives.
Even after the first 2 attacks, no one believed that a shark could actually enter the creek and make its way up.
Next is to outright ignore the problem. That always works. Third phase is time to fight the problem and bring in the scientists. Now, people were reacting. New Jersey and New York residents had yet another reason to feel worried. And calls poured in to local, state, and even federal officials, begging President Wilson to stop this demon terrorizing the Jersey Shore. No, I'm not talking about the Jersey Shore cast. There was even a cabinet meeting just for this, and federal aid sent to stop these sea monsters. Their shark fears tangled with the war, and some people thought these were specially trained sharks that followed German U-boats to attack American civilians. Panic cost the area $250 grand in tourism, around the equivalency of $6 million today. By the second gruesome attack, protective measures started popping up. By July 8th, Spring Creek had armed motorboats patrolling. Anyone in the water was armed even with dynamite and lashed out at anything that could be a shark. 4th Avenue Beach put up a steel wire mesh fence to keep the man-eater out. The man-eater attacked next outside the fence. The final 3. Retired fishing boat captain Thomas Cottrell was heading home over a Matawan drawbridge when he saw a massive shark apparently swimming up the waterway, some 10 miles up from the saltwater sea. The freshwater residents thought they were safe from all that, so his warnings went ignored. Jump to July 12th. Lester Stillwell was just 11 when he worked in a local basket weaving factory. The foreman let him off early, and Lester used that time to enjoy the creek in this deadly heat wave. He and some friends splashed around and spotted some weird large mass. And when they investigated, it turned out to be an enormous shark. The beast grabbed onto poor Lester and pulled him up and down the water. His shocked friends yelled and ran for help. A tailor named Stanley Fisher, just 24, joined along with the other 2 to save the day. So Fisher went in to get Lester, but the shark wasn't done. The helpful tailor was fatally wounded and died hours later.
Stanley said he was going down to see if he could help his friend, but he never came back. Stanley Fisher never came back.
And the boy's remains were found over 100 miles upstream. The day's disasters weren't done. Half an hour later, another youngster, Joseph Dunn, was bitten on the leg. Finally, some good news, Dunn survived, but he lost the leg. Bloodbath. The situation felt personal, and people wanted to take action. What breed was the shark? How many were involved in the deaths? It didn't matter. People wanted to feel safe again, and they wanted revenge. Fisherman Michael Skleiser caught himself a great white measuring 7 to 8 feet long. Just like in Jaws, people took the grim measure of opening it up to confirm this was the culprit.
But the fact is that the bite radius on this animal is different than the wounds on the victim.
And it seemed to be, with over a dozen pounds of unidentified human remains. After this big final fight, the attacks stopped. A great white was reported as the culprit, but they really can't go from salty to fresh water. The creek is brackish, sure, but today most theories point to a bull shark. So what do you think? How many sharks do you think made up this Jersey Shore man-eater? The Jaws we know. This bout of attacks rose to infamy then, and it remains a dark history still. But Peter Benchley, writer of the original Jaws novel in 1974, had a different inspiration for his horror story. Jump ahead to the 1960s, and we meet fisherman and charterboat captain Frank Mundus. He was the target of a lot of criticism for his fishing and hunting methods, which included killing whales just to get chum, as well as harpooning sharks, both which are banned today. In the 60s, we could find Mundus stalking the waters off Long Island and Block Island. There, his prey was the notorious great white.
For that you get the head, the tail, the whole damn thing.
His ammo had barrels attached that kept anything from swimming deep under. It's also said he's one of the first to make big bucks taking charters out to go after sharks. But his record catch of a 3,427-pound great white made all the headlines and caught Benchley's attention. It was 28 miles off the New York coast of Montauk. This is where Benchley reeled in huge inspiration for his book Jaws, and the character of Captain Quint, who, if you'll remember, was very old school, eccentric, and used barrels to keep his target near the surface.
Hooper, hurry it up now, tie it on.
Ah, there you are, Jaws. 5 victims, 1 terrifying month at the beach. It seems like twisted fate that even what was meant to be an escape was just another source of terror for a different summer. The attacks along the Jersey coast marked the most definitive time for shark perception, and it predated the book and film Jaws by half a century. But even so, the parallels are eerie. So now we want to know, do you go in the water when you visit the beach? Did you have a fear of open oceans before seeing the incredible Jaws of the 70s? Did any of you see it in theaters? Get in the comments and tell me what you recall. And if you want to know about the cast of Jaws and what they got into after the 70s, we have a great cast deep dive too. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, it really helps a lot. And don't forget to subscribe, and then you'll know when a video comes out. We catch more facts. Facts go in the video are facts.
Cage goes in the water, you go in the water, shark's in the water. Our shark.
I'm your host, Nostalgic Nick, and from all of us here at Do You Remember, we want to thank you for watching.